Hi Nick, thanks for agreeing to have a chat. Just if you could just introduce yourself and just have a quick chat about your campaign, that'd be great to introduce yourself to the viewers.
Sure, my name's Nick Buckley, and I'm an independent candidate standing for Mayor of Greater Manchester, and the election is the 2nd of May next year.
All right, so that's quite soon. So why did you decide to get into politics?
Several things happened to me. So the first thing was about 3 years ago. I was cancelled from the charity I set up for criticising Black Lives Matter. I fought back, made the board, resigned, got my job back, so that all ended well. And then at one point I thought, well, that's over now. I can carry on with my life. And I realised it wasn't over because the country's still falling apart and these things are still happening to other people. So I decided I needed to stand up. I needed to try to fix the country I love and I called home. So I decided then I was going to stand for Mayor of Greater Manchester. I decided that about 7 months ago. So I've taken a year off work and
Hmm.
I'm working on this full time, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to raise my profile. I've done a manifesto, I'm doing interviews, and I'm just trying to tell the people of this region what I want to do and the vision I've got. And if they like it, they can vote for me. If they don't like it, then the election will show me people that don't like what I had to say.
What feedback have you had so far? Have you had positive feedback?
It's been 99% positive feedback. Um, but part of that will be not many people have heard of me still in Greater Manchester. So still a bit of an echo chamber out there. People who follow me, support me, so therefore it's always positive. But people I meet on the street, people I meet in the pub, out and about, I'm trying to represent just those normal common sense views, and they're going down well. But again, we need to be careful that we're not in an echo chamber. And I'm only hearing the things from people who like me. There'll be many people out there who'll disagree with some of my views, but I need to speak to them and reach out to them as well because there'll be, even though they may disagree with some of my views, there'll be lots and lots of things we agree on.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm sure that actually the vast majority of people do actually want to see some common sense in politics because it is sadly lacking at the moment. So one of the things that we've previously touched on is the importance of families, which of course for us at the Family Education Trust is really important because we see how the breakdown of families is contributing to the decline in society and the big rise in mental health crisis in children and young people. So I wondered if you could share your views about that and your experience in that.
Sure, I've been working with young people for 2 decades now, over 2 decades. I fell into the career working for Manchester Council. So I wasn't a youth worker. My job was around reducing crime and antisocial behaviour, but specialising in young people, stopping them committing crime and antisocial behaviour. And I can say from first-hand experience working for the council for nearly a decade that I can only think of one young person I worked with who was a problem, who had a father at home. Only one. Out of the other thousands, fathers were always missing out of the home. And I knew that was a problem then. I knew that was a problem from my upbringing because I was raised by a single parent. Um, and I was probably 23 years old until I realized I missed having a father in the home. And by that point, my father died. So my mum and dad split up when I was 2. He died when I was 6 or 7. So I have no memories of my father at all. And we were talking about shaving in a beer garden in a pub in Longsight in South Manchester. And we were talking around the table, how do you shave? Someone had bought the new Gillette £15 wet shaver. And it got to me, and my story was, well, when I was 12, 13, I found an ancient electric razor in a cupboard in an old bedroom that belonged to my dead granddad, and I started shaving with that. And I've always shaved with electric razors ever since. And all my friends had stories about how their dads took them to the bathroom, showed them how to shave, and they shave exactly the same way their dads had taught them a decade or two before. And I realised then I've missed having a father, only for this one silly little thing, which then made me realise, well, if I didn't know I missed it on this occasion, where else have I missed having a father, a male role model in the house to help me with my life, help me down the path of being a man, of taking personal responsibility, of working, of drive, of ambition, of being a protector, being a provider. And I realized there's many things I missed out on. I don't know what those things are because you don't know what you've never had. But I realized then at 23 years old, and then working with this, then working with the kids on the streets, which I set a charity up to do to stop kids getting involved in crime and antisocial behavior. It was the same sort of kids I was when I was 10, 12, 15, lost, trying to make it on your own, no advice, no guidance. And as a boy, as the older you get, the less you rely on your mum. You
Yeah.
don't want advice off your mum because you're supposed to be a man. So we then fill that void with TV. Kids these days fill it with rap music and local drug dealers. I was lucky there was no such thing, in the 70s when I was growing up. But we start filling that father-shaped void with negative male role models, and we
Yeah.
wonder why young boys are making the wrong decisions. And I equate it to, the book Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Lord of the Flies is a group of boys having to figure out how to create a society, how to live with themselves on an island, desert island. And they're making mistakes all the time and having to learn from mistakes. And that's what fathers are there for. So their children don't have to keep making the same mistakes. Life's a game. Some people start 4, 5, 6 paces ahead of everybody else in the game because they had a good father at home and they won't make those mistakes. They already know what's important. But without a father, you're starting from zero and you've got to start trying to catch up those other kids who have had a better start in life. And that's not about money. That's about advice, guidance, love and affection, and having male role models as well as female role models. I don't want to put men back in the home so we can kick women out of the home. Children need a mother and a father in the home, not one or the other. They need both of them, both vitally important.
Yeah, definitely. I was speaking to Dr. Erica Cosima earlier, and she was saying that actually the chemicals involved within the body are completely different within men and women, and that mothers, when women become mothers, that they have a big surge in oxytocin, and with men they tend to have a surge of testosterone because that is nature's way of actually giving men and women the different biological functions that they need. And the push at the moment towards raising gender neutral children and trying to say that children are exactly the same, in our experience looking at the evidence, actually really harmful, trying to, especially with boys, trying to, well, both of them actually, but with boys, almost like they're trying to say, well, you're like a defective girl, you've got to learn and behave in the same way as a girl, and saying to girls that there's no difference between you. It just seems to me to be just so lacking in common sense, but actually harmful in that girls and boys are different and men and women are different, and children need both. As I said, they need both their parents, their mums and their dads, to actually raise them to have the best chance in life. And it just seems crazy that we're going away from what all the evidence shows is actually the best way to raise resilient children, and we seem to be going away from that, and it's having a people are not joining the dots and showing that it's having this harmful effect on children. So what do you think we can do about it? Have you got any thoughts of what you would like to do if you are to be elected?
Yeah, so one of my policy areas is around the family
Mm,
because that's what we don't celebrate anymore. Politicians don't even talk about the family anymore. It's like it's old fashioned. Well, you might think it's old fashioned, but it got us to where we are today after 100,000, several 100,000 years of us privatizing the family led to this modern world we're in now. So the family is extremely important. And there's lots of things we can do. And some of the things I'll be able to do as mayor, but not everything because I'm not the prime minister. So some of the things I'll be doing is the mayor's office. Anybody who applies for any money for any project out of the mayor's office will have to show how that benefits the family. And if it doesn't benefit the family, you don't get the funding for any of the projects. And then we need to look at how do we get fathers back into the home. We need to look at our family court system. I've not had any personal interactions with the family court system, but everybody who has tells me it's horrendous. And it starts off from the premise that men are evil, men are violent, and then we take it from there. And it's like, that's not a fair system whatsoever. So the Mayor of Greater Manchester also has some responsibility for the criminal justice system. So I can be looking at that. But some of the big drivers need national government. So let's look at single parent households. So when we say single parent households, what we really mean is single mothers. So from being kind and compassionate in the 60s by saying, isn't it a shame? We feel sorry for these women and these children being brought up with no father and short of money. So what we'll do as a compassionate society is we'll give them some state handouts and their lives will be slightly better. That came from a nice place. But what it did was it financially incentivized wrong decisions by mainly women. And then it also allowed weak men to walk away from their partners and their children because the state would look after them. So it financially incentivized men and women to make poor decisions. And those decisions were poor for the state and poor for the taxpayer. It might have been the right decision for that woman and that man. But what we never talk about is who it affects most of all. And it affects those children, where women now and men to some extent make conscious decisions that I'm going to have a child and I'm not going to bring it up, or I'm going to have a child and I'm going to have no man in the house. And you could class this as a type of child abuse, but it's socially acceptable child abuse. And there's different types of child abuse which are socially acceptable. Many cultures over tens of thousands of years have damaged children, have sacrificed children on altars, cut their hearts out, thrown them in volcanoes, because it's the innocence and the value of a child that makes them a good sacrifice. And we see that today with the trans woke crazy movement we see now. We're sacrificing our children on the altar of the LGBTQ touch your knees, turn round and bend over ideology. And we need to get away from that. And we get away from it by making sure we get fathers back in the home. So as mayor, that's one of my big things, family. So we'll be organising family fun days across Greater Manchester. And when I talk about family fun days, I mean events that are not specifically for the Black community, the Muslim community, the LGBT community, the Roman Catholic community. We have all these events all the time. No one holds family events anymore where it brings the whole community together, regardless of religion, sexuality, colour. We've all got families in common. I want grandparents coming. We forget about how important grandparents are to supporting a man and a woman raising their children, because it's hard work raising children and you need extended family, you need grandparents. So I want to start doing that across Greater Manchester as a very small step in protecting the family and trying to get men back into the households to raise their children. And some of the things I've seen through my 2 decades of work for the council, with the police and in the charity sector, is enough to make you cry. I mean, personally, I've stopped now just over 15 girls from being raped and abused. And every single one of them didn't have a father at home. And when you ask yourself, why is that? For 2 reasons. First of all, those girls were crying out for attention, were crying out for male attention. And all you had to do is, if you're a perverted man, is pretend to be her boyfriend, her father figure. And then they learn to get love, you give sex. And that's what we're teaching our young girls, to validate you as a young woman, and for you to get worth in this society is all to do with your sexuality, your sexualness, and it's completely wrong. So we're prostituting girls for love and affection. It also, because there's no father at home, perverted men know there's no father at home. So those girls are easy meat, because a man, if he's going to abuse a girl who has a father at home, that man risks violence, because he doesn't know how that father is going to react to this. But if there's no father at home, that child's natural protector is now absent. There's no protector of that child. It should be the father, but there isn't any. So therefore, those girls become easy meat. And then you can look at the boys, and I've worked mainly with boys rather than girls. But the boys have the same issue. No father at home, trying to figure out how it is to be a man. They're looking up to local drug dealers, to local criminals, to local gangsters in their area. They then get groomed into those criminal gangs because they want some respect. They get bought at McDonald's and they're a member of a gang. Other kids are slightly afraid of them, and they're mixing up the wrong type of masculinity. I mean, if anything's toxic, that's toxic masculinity there, but that's not real masculinity. That's criminality. But they have to replace it with something. They're replacing it with the wrong thing. If they had fathers at home, they would then understand what it is to be a man. They would understand how you treat women, how you treat your wife, how you treat your children, what it takes to have a successful relationship, the give and take, the compromise, the dealing with issues. We're not teaching any of our children, boys or girls, this anymore. So at the first point of a difficulty in a relationship, and let me be honest, every relationship is always full of difficulties. But if we're teaching young people now, you just walk away and you blame the other person. Well, that gets us into this single parent epidemic we've got, which then produces more children who want more single parent household, who get involved in crime, who then get involved. Most boys who weren't raised by their fathers, 75, 80% of the prison population in the UK didn't have fathers at home. Most drug addicts didn't have fathers at home. Alcoholics, gamblers, they're looking for the void. I've done decades of work now with rough sleepers on the streets in Manchester. Nearly all of them, no fathers at home. So they've drifted through life, can't make long-lasting relationships, can't make employment work. And then you go bang, 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 you end up on the streets, a drug addict, mental health issues. It's all connected. If we can fix this one issue, which is getting fathers back in the home, we will fix probably 50% of our social issues in the UK. But we haven't got any politicians brave enough or with a backbone to say this or do anything about this. And the main reason is short-termism. Our politicians only care about the next election in 3 years' time. They're not going to fix this in 3 years' time. So therefore, there's no point in me spending my political capital on this. I want something to get me elected. So let me look at some low-hanging fruit. Let me do some virtue signaling. That might get me elected again. And that's what's wrong with our career politicians. They're career politicians. What we need are statespeople, a statesman, a stateswoman. We need leaders who go, I'm going to do these things because these are the right things to do. And it may take several decades for us to get the benefit of these things. And I don't care if I'm not in power in 2 decades' time because it's the right thing to do for the country. The last person we had like that was someone I never would have voted for, and that was Jeremy Corbyn. Disagreed with him in everything, but at least he came across as principled. At least he said, this is the vision I have for the country. If you don't like it, don't vote for me. And we all went, well, we're not voting for you. But I have some more respect for the man for that. He didn't go, what's going to get me elected? He had a plan, a vision for the future, like Margaret Thatcher did. We don't get that anymore. We get politicians now who look at the latest opinion poll and then base their policies around the latest opinion poll. I call politicians like that cowards.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems to be a lot of selfishness going on in politics, and politicians who are looking at, like you said, that their own journey into power and their own progress rather than the good of the country and the good of the family and in terms of protecting children. So one thing that we're really concerned about, among many things that we're concerned about at the moment, is the issue with inappropriate relationship and sex education in school, because there's no focus on marriage or family or giving priority to children, and it just seems to be short-term focus on pleasure and instant gratification in sex education. So I wonder what your thoughts are on that. What would you like to see change in the way that schools are teaching children about relationships?
I'd like the government, as much as we can, out of all our lives, as much as possible. Over my lifetime, they've interfered and climbed into every aspect of our lives, and we need to eject them from many aspects. If you'd have asked me 30 years ago, I'd have said, we need children getting sex education in school. It seemed obvious to me. 30 years later, I'm not too sure. The young people I speak to now have the world's knowledge at their fingertips on their phones.
Yeah.
Nothing is hidden from them anymore now. So do we need to be teaching them everything in school? I think the answer is no, especially around sex education. And then we're also removing the rights of parents who don't want their children taught about certain stuff. And again, 30 years ago, I'd have said those parents are backwards and we need to educate those children, and because they're going to be damaged from their parents. But again, 30 years later, I'm now saying, who am I to tell parents how to raise their children? Who am
Yeah.
I? So a lot of my thoughts have changed, and a lot of it changed by working for the council. Once you work for government and you see how incompetent the government is, you then decide you don't want that. You don't want that government making any decisions for you because it's pure incompetence. That doesn't mean people are going to make all the right decisions, because they're not. And when people make the wrong decision, I'd rather you make the wrong decision than the government make the wrong decision for you, because at least you can learn from your wrong decisions. The government's incapable of learning from their mistakes, but you're capable of learning from your mistakes. So let's get back to sex education in school. Lots of things we shouldn't be teaching. We shouldn't be teaching gender ideology, which doesn't exist. When they talk about gender ideology, they just mean personality.
Yeah.
And of course,
Agreed.
yeah, we've all got different personalities.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You be who you want to be. I really don't want to stop you being anything you want to be. You want to be a two-spirited cow who talks like a sheep. Fantastic. That's what you can be. I'm not going to engage in it, but you can do that if you're an adult and you don't hurt anybody else. I don't care what adults do. Now we're banging on about sexuality, homosexuality, bisexuality, all trans, all this crazy stuff. And again, live the life you want to live. I really don't care. But we're indoctrinating children at school.
Yeah.
And it's not like this is an accident. Of course it's indoctrination. That's why we're doing it in schools. This is an agenda to not necessarily convert young people to be gay or bisexual or trans, but to make sure they're more acceptable to these woke LGBT causes that are coming down the pipeline. And for people who want to see what's coming next, check out something called queer theory. That's coming next. It's already here to a certain extent, but lots of people have not heard queer theory. If you want to be terrified and you want to be afraid for your children's lives, check out queer theory. That's the big danger coming. So we need all those things removing out of school. I don't mind teaching in school the biology of sex. The sperm meets the egg, and that's exactly when a life's been created. We don't teach that now because that's controversial. Life only now occurs the second the fetus leaves the womb. It's like, oh, it's been a baby in there since for 9 months.
Yeah.
It might not have looked like a baby all that time, but it's always been a baby, because life starts at fertilization. But we're not teaching that anymore, because that's controversial.
Yeah. Well, abortion's just another form of contraception now, isn't it? The way that it's put in school.
Well, abortion's been contraception nearly all my life. I don't think it's contraception now. I think it's something a lot more darker now.
Yeah.
You speak to people who are extremely pro-choice, and they will tell you 1 second before that baby's born, that mother has the right to kill it in the womb. 1 second before it's born, 9 months old. It's gone beyond. It's gone beyond contraception now. It's tapping into our dark, evil side of human nature. We've seen that throughout history: genocides, mass murder, how we treat foreign, soldiers on the battlefield. We're an evil, nasty creature when we want to be, and civilization was created to try to dampen down those animalistic feelings and that evilness within all of us. And some people now have found a way of bringing it back to the fore, and some of the pro-choice arguments are just pure evil.
No, it's quite frightening what's happening. So where can people find out more about your campaign, and where can they see you? Will you be out and about in Manchester?
Yep. So at the moment, most of my campaign is online because it's free, and I'm working on it all the time. If you go on my website, you can read my manifesto. My website is nickbuckley4mayor.co.uk. I'm on all social media channels from Twitter, Facebook. I've even joined TikTok, which is doing all right at the moment, but surprise. Don't know what I'm doing on it. I'm just putting these videos chopped up on TikTok. They're doing
Yeah.
okay. I'm on everything. So find me on there at Nick Buckley MBE. It's the same handle on all platforms.
Mhm.
And for people who live in Greater Manchester, please have a look at my manifesto, check me out, see my other videos on my YouTube channel. There's like 600 videos on there now. There's nothing I'm hiding, it's all there. And if you like what I've got to say, vote for me, speak to your family and friends in Greater Manchester about me, because that's my biggest issue at the moment. I'm independent, I've got no money behind me to buy advertisements. The press really won't pick me up. They're only interested in Labour and the Tory candidates. I need a grassroots movement. I need local people going, we need a change here, because if we keep voting for the same politicians, the same parties, we keep getting the same. Well, of
Yeah.
course you do. You've got to vote differently. And I'm different. I've spent 2 decades working in all these neighbourhoods across Greater Manchester. I'm not a career politician. I don't want to be a career politician. I just want to improve my country and the region that I love. So check me out and please share my posts and just talk to your family and friends about me.
Great, great. Thank you, Nick.
And
I'll
if you're a millionaire and you want to back a campaign, make contact with me, because I need some money to run this campaign if I'm going to have a chance of winning. So if you're a millionaire, come speak to me.
all right. Thank you very much, Nick.
If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around. Tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.